Bula Vinaka, Namaste and good evening. Welcome back to Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm your host Vijay Narayan, and our guest tonight, as promised, is the chair of the Fiji Human Rights and Anti-Discrimination Commission, Mr. Pravesh Sharma. Mr. Sharma is the chair of a very important independent institution in the country, which is also as part of the 2013 Constitution, has the requirements and functionalities spelled out, and Mr. Sharma will be talking to you who have also sent many questions in relation to issues that affect you. So we will be going throughout the show. Also, I'll try my very best again to ask your questions. Mr. Sharma, thank you very much for making yourself available today.
Thank you. Bula Namaste and good evening.
Mr. Sharma, what are the main functions of the Human Rights and Anti-Discrimination Commission in Fiji?
Well, can I just start off to say that our commission was established in 1999. So this is our 25th year of operation. We are established under the Fiji Human Rights and Anti-Discrimination Commission Act 2009. And in addition, we also have powers and functions outlined in the Constitution Act 2013. Four main functions are to promote and educate, protect a human right culture in Fiji. So that's our primary aim. We have a education team which goes out and does that regularly to the communities, to rural areas, maritime areas, schools, universities, marketplaces. We hand out pamphlets, we have a website, basically educating people about their human rights. So that's our starting point. Then we also have a complaints division. So people can walk in, complain to us. Recently, in addition to having our Suva office, we've recently opened a Latoka regional office. So now the people in the West can walk in and complain. We also have plans to open an office in Reki, one in Savu Savu and one in Labasa. So these are our long-term plans. In addition to the complaints we receive, we acknowledge, we assess, investigate, we can mediate, we can conciliate. So a lot of the complaints can be resolved in this manner. But we can also have them referred to the prosecuting agencies if we think that happens. And we also have a role to ensure that legislation in the country is human rights compliant. Whenever new legislation is being drafted, we will actually have an input to ensure that human rights principles are adhered to. We also have a function to ensure our government complies with, so far, the 11 international conventions and treaties it has ratified. So there would be reporting requirements for that. So we ensure that that's done. So in a nutshell, those are our core functions, and we have teams to deal with those.
Is the independent institution being empowered, strengthened, and getting the necessary support it requires?
This is a good question, because a lot of people feel we are actually funded by the government. That is not unusual. Human rights institutions are set up under Paris Principles 1993, and in those principles it did say that the government of the country is the one which funds the National Human Rights Institution. A lot of people question whether we can be independent because we are funded by the government. Yes, we can be. Most of our complaints are against governmental agencies of the Fiji Police Force and the correction services. So we do take them to task whenever we have received complaints. Can I also mention that the judiciary, which is independent from the government, are also funded by the government. Their wages, the judicial officers' wages, are paid by the government. So we are in the same field as such. And under section 45(7) of the Constitution, the only limitation we have is final court decisions. Otherwise, we are independent. We are not answerable otherwise, although we are accountable both nationally and internationally. When I mean internationally, we are part of an organization called GENRI, Global Alliance of National Human Rights Institution, which is a global institution, looks after all human rights institution, and it has 4 branches. We belong to the Asia Pacific Forum branch, and we have B status, B accreditation status. What that means is, in terms of how well are we Paris Principles compliant in terms of doing human rights work, right? So in between 2003 and 2007, we had A status. But after the December 2006 military coup, there was a report by Genri that we were not fully independent and compliant with human rights principles, and we were, so as a result, they actually stripped us of our A status. We as a commission then in February 2021, we applied to be re-accredited, and in June they gave us B status. B status means we can attend meetings, but A status is the one where you can actually participate in these human rights, UN Human Rights Council meetings, as well as hold governance positions. Right now our team is now working towards achieving the A status. So that is one of our goals in the near future.
What would it take to achieve A status?
Okay, right now there are 3 requirements which Genri's sub-accreditation committee has put to us, and that is, right now our 5 commissioners have previously been handpicked by the Constitutional Officers Commission and recommended to the President for appointment. They are not happy with that. What they've suggested is that the commissioners' positions should be advertised, shortlisted, and interviewed. So the best 5 applicants will be chosen on merit. And I, as one of the existing commissioners, I totally agree with that, and we are putting a plan in action. So my term finishes in February 2025, and so by November we'll advertise the 5 positions and meet that requirement. So by February 2025, 5 new commissioners will be appointed in a very independent, transparent manner. There is another provision previously that our previous commissioner, Mr. Kamal Kumar, was also the acting Chief Justice as well as Commissioner for our commission, the chairperson for our commission. That did not sit in well. There is a conflict of interest. But then he was appointed Chief Justice, and then he moved on from that position. So then I became chair. So that conflict of interest has been resolved. The only other provision which we have to comply with, and our office has dealt with this by talking to the Attorney General's office, which is Section 29(1)H of our Human Rights and Anti-Discrimination Act 2009, that says that you can't treat one complaint over another. You have to treat all complaints on the same level. You can't give preference to one. So we said that's not a problem. We will actually amend that particular provision so that we are compliant. So these are things we can achieve. And so we are working towards it, and we are confident by early next year we should be able to apply for A status, and maybe by June next year we'll get that.
Okay, hopefully the country gets that, and we focus on getting that, and we'll continue to focus that, maybe also speak to the government about it. Do you get enough funding?
We have
Do you have enough staff?
We don't have enough staff right now. We actually ideally should have 30 staff, 5 commissioners, 1 director, and 30 staff. And previously we had 30 staff, but over time we actually lost staff, and we are now to 10. We actually have 9 staff right now. So 1/3 capacity, and once you actually lose staff, you lose the budget for their wages as well. So with our current leadership, we are trying to build up the team. We've just opened the Latok office, and other offices, as I mentioned, regional offices will be appointed. And we actually apply, like in the budget rounds, we actually put in to say, this is the amount of staff we're going to need. And then once we get the budget, then we'll build up a team. So right now we have a advocacy and education team, a complaints team, human resources team. But ideally we should have our own legal team. We should have a policy team. Right now, in addition to being the chairperson, I'm also the proceedings commissioner, the person who actually takes matters to court. And I can mention that we do constitutional redresses cases, right? So right now, certain serving inmates have actually joined our commission as amicus curiae to assist them. And we are looking at issues like 1/3 remission. Some of the prisoners are saying that they've actually served more than their time, so they want to be released. Others are saying that they've applied for legal assistance and weren't given legal assistance. So they had to actually fight the case in person. So these are regularly we get joined in as amicus curiae. In addition, we do other constitutional redresses on our own. We might institute it, such as arbitrary eviction.
Now, how critical is it to have a Human Rights Commission, an Anti-Discrimination Commission in the country?
It's very, very crucial. It's a very important institution, and we are so happy that we have one in Fiji since 1999, as I've mentioned. It is our job as an independent watchdog is to ensure that we want people to know about the human rights, that human rights are respected, protected, and enforced. Now, if I can just mention, in the Pacific region, we have 16 nations, but only 4 have human rights institutions, right? Australia, New Zealand, Samoa, and Fiji. Tuvalu has recently set one up, but it's not operational. Other countries, Tonga, Cook Islands, Papua New Guinea, Solomons, they are at different stages of trying to acquire a human rights institution, and we have very good funding, technical support from the Pacific community, from OHCHR, from Asia Pacific Forum, from Genri. So there's a lot of support there in terms of technical training. We don't actually have a regional body, human rights body in the Pacific, because there's only 4 countries. Now, why is it so important to have a human rights institution? For example, if we had all 16 nations in the Pacific region with national human rights institutions, we would be a strong collective voice on issues which affect the region. Climate change. We are the least emitters, and yet we stand to suffer the most. In 50 years, some of our Pacific islands will be underwater unless some drastic action is being taken. But four national human rights institutions are finding it very hard to stand up against the countries which are actually causing the emissions. So we try and band together the 4 of us, and we've called on the other nations. You might not have national human rights institutions right now, but you would have ministries or departments or someone very concerned about climate change. Come together with us. Let's form a united front and deal with these issues. Climate change is, that is a human rights issue in our constitution. We have the right to a safe and healthy environment. So many, as you know, that Fiji is a coastal country. Most of us live on the coast, right? And so the seawaters, rising seawaters are affecting our people in that their homes have been eroded. They've been living there for generations. Their burial grounds have been affected. Their farms have been affected. Their fishing habitats have been affected. What are the remedies they are seeking? They want relocation, right? In April last year, the government on its own initiative identified 42 villages to be relocated. At the same time, we were doing a climate change project. We identified another 19 villages to be relocated. So almost every village you go to are being affected in some way or the other. This heavy rainfall is also causing soil erosion. So that's yet another effect of climate change.
And that is a very concerning thing, Mr. Sharma, and definitely we've seen a lot of villagers also saying they do not want to move because they've lived there for generations, and it is a concerning issue. As a concerted effort with the government, what can be done about this?
I think the government needs to visit all these areas and ask the people what remedies do they want. In some instances, we might be able to rectify it by building seawalls. I can understand why people don't want to be relocated, because the main highway is around the coast. So ideally, that's transportation for people. If they go inland, this is areas which they haven't been living before, and very importantly, that it's their cultural heritage, that they've grown up in these areas. So And it's through no fault of this that suddenly they are losing their homes because the water is rising. So I think there's a lot of dialogue needed, and that people need to understand. When we first approached these people, they did not even know that this was a human right. Climate change only became, human rights is an evolving issue. Climate change only was recognized internationally by the UN as a human right in October 2021. So understandably, most people did not know about it. So we've tried to educate people who have been affected. It is your human right to be able to stay where you are, to have your house protected, your livelihood protected. And so that's one of our main roles, to educate people about human rights. And so the government teams need to go and talk to them and see what do they want. And if there's no other option, sadly they'll have to be relocated.
What is being done and what more can be done to create awareness on the importance of the Bill of Rights in the Constitution?
Okay. The Bill of Rights is Chapter 2 of the Constitution, 2013. It's a very important chapter in that it contains people's rights. To my knowledge, there are 35 human rights. The right to a healthy environment, the right to life, the right to be treated equally, accused person's right, what sort of rights do they have when they are arrested, when they are taken to court. Children's rights are protected, migrant rights are protected. So we have very good legislation, and we for our part are trying to educate people about it through statements we are releasing on a regular basis. But I would imagine that we look after many rights, but there are other institutions which are specific. So we have disability groups, we have women's groups, we have LGBTI groups. So these other organizations are also doing their bits to promote the rights which affect their individual groups. So in that way, there's a lot of knowledge out there in terms of what rights are. And if more can be done in terms of journalism, I would say that, that's something to be taken to task. And, or perhaps the government can create more websites to make more awareness about the Constitution. As I said, the rights are very well protected. It's a matter of whether people know about it and whether they have been enforced in the right manner. There's a lot of breaches. This is why all these institutions are trying to say that, it should be, people's rights should be protected.
You're watching Fiji Village Street Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. We'll be back after this break.
Oh my gosh! Oh, what's in the box? See, it's so new and fresh.
Looks better, eh?
This is everything I could have ever wanted.
What you looking at?
Oi, you're gonna have to find out.
Okay, set. It's hooked up now.
Are you ready to take your lie detector test? Sit. Ready.
He's lying.
Why are you lying to me? I wouldn't lie to you again.
Liar!
So, I wouldn't lie to you guys, honestly.
Really? Con man.
Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. I need you to stop all your little silly games and tell me what I want to know. I don't know what you want to know.
Gorim, body bluffing.
You tell me what's the least popular radio station in Fiji.
FM 86. Huh?
Yeah?
You lie.
Share. Eh?
I'ma kick back when you fake like that. I'm a head out of the game, I don't play that back. Would you let me go? No, you never come back. I'ma be that best that you never had. I'ma kick back when you never.
You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. Our guest tonight, the chair of the Fiji Human Rights and Anti-Discrimination Commission, Mr. Pravesh Sharma. Mr. Sharma, one of the most talked about issues at the moment is the sad incident of a 19-year-old member of the LGBTI community who was allegedly subjected to physical assault. Unfortunately, he has also passed away. Questions have been raised in relation to what is going on. You have also released a statement about it. What are you concerned about?
The concern is that, firstly, can I mention Section 11 of the Constitution? Every person has the right to life and it cannot be taken away arbitrarily. And that's what's happened to this poor 19-year-old person who belonged to two vulnerable groups. One, to the LGBTI community, and also he was a sex worker. And everyone under Section 26, everyone has the right to equal treatment under the law. And under Section 26(3)(a), everyone is entitled to practice their sexual orientation or whatever gender they want to pursue. So my commission, as soon as we found out about his death, we immediately released a statement saying to the police, there is an allegation of assault. Have the persons who've assaulted the deceased, have they been taken to task? Have they been arrested? If not, why not? We want this person's death to be fully investigated. Why should it be different from any other person? That is what our concern is, that we know the police force is very capable. Whenever there's any incident, people are, the incidents are investigated and people are charged. Our concern is that no one seems to have been charged yet. So this is why we are calling on the police to say, please investigate this matter and take the people, the perpetrators, to court and let the court decide whether they've actually are guilty of assault or not. We cannot just sweep this under the carpet, and questions arise. Why is it not happening?
The issue is being said by the police that this person had a known medical condition, but there is also allegations of the violent assault that this person underwent, and that is what you're concerned about.
That is our concern. I mean, whether it's linked to the death, we don't know. I mean, that's for the person who carried out a post-mortem, if a post-mortem was carried out, to establish. But the concern is, there is an allegation that the person was assaulted. And as I understand, and I stand to be corrected, but the person was also brutalized with an iron rod in a private part. Why is that not been raised as an issue? Vijay, if I can just mention that in December 2013, a very sad incident happened in New Delhi, India, where a woman was gang raped and also brutalized with an iron rod. The whole world was appalled about that. Why is our citizen in Fiji not getting the same sort of coverage or attention?
In this case, you have made the call to police. Have they come back to you in relation to what you've called for?
We haven't heard back from the police yet. So we are hopeful that a full investigation will be carried out.
What kind of complaints are being received against the police?
The complaints against police can be inaction by the police. People have lodged complaints and nothing has happened. And the other one is brutality, that people taken into police stations have been brutalized, beaten up, assaulted. And so those are the sort of complaints we get. We also get complaints about correctional services where prisoners might have been brutalized or that they were sick and not taken to hospital facilities to be treated, things of that nature.
How many cases are being received on a yearly basis on average, and how is this being dealt with? You have staffing issues, you have budgetary constraints. How many complaints are coming through?
We can get at least 2 to 3 complaints a day. We insist on people actually identifying themselves as complainants, which means we don't take anonymous complaints. Okay, we ourselves, like in the case of the 19-year-old deceased, no one complained to us, but we read it in the newspapers what was happening. So we also have the ability to actually look at matters ourselves and call for investigations. So in this instance, we've done that, right? In the same way, a lady in a Bar police station, an elderly woman, had collapsed and died. before a complaint was received, we heard about it in the media. So we are constantly following what you as journalists do, and we get a lot of information out of that, and we are entitled to actually pursue those sort of complaints. But people who actually lay complaints in person, we insist they identify themselves. So we are not caught out in a situation where people are doing that out of malice. We need a real person, we identify them, then we take the complaints. Yes, we are short-staffed, but we deal with it as much as well as we can. And so far we are coping. Our staff are stretched, I have to say, but we do get to complaints. Part of the process is verifying the complaints, whether they are real. Then we investigate, and that's when we deal with agencies like the police or correctional services, or sometimes we get complaints, say employers bringing in migrant workers. This is an area of concern for us right now, because migrant workers are being exploited. The people who bring them take money from them, hold on to their passports, and then basically, but these are people who can't do any better in their own country. They can't find jobs there. So people from Bangladesh come here. So the currency is so high to them here as opposed to back home. They're happy to receive what they can. So in many instances, once they've completed their terms, the employers literally leave them on the street. And these are the things we are saying that the Ministry of Immigration and Labour need to look into, to ensure anyone who comes in, there are strict procedures that there is a return ticket for them. So they're not stranded in the country and to be then sent back at the expense of our government.
Now, my issue in relation to, you said there's a lot of complaints regarding police, institutions like correction service. What is the relationship between the Human Rights Commission and these two institutions? Is there constant training conducted for the officers? How are those issues dealt with?
Last year in November, we held a torture prevention workshop. This was facilitated by Asia Pacific Forum, and we also got in an agency, Asia Prevention of Torture, Association of Prevention of Torture. Two persons came from Geneva to actually conduct the workshop. So very good facilitators. And we invited police, the military, corrections, immigration, St. Giles Institution, academics. A lot of people came, 31 participants. And we tried to say to them that we have ratified the Torture Prevention Convention, and we need to actually ensure people do that. So one of the issues which came out was that we said to the police and corrections and even military, let us be part of the training academy, right? This is when we should be coming in as a human rights institution to say, we want to actually do a course on human rights. At that very outset, your cadets should know about this and be trained in that regard. So apparently that's already been done, but internally we are saying that we as an outside agency who specialize in human rights, invite us. We are happy to come and educate and provide training in that regard. Right now it's not happening. We are hopeful that it does happen.
Now, why I ask the question is issues that have come up which the Human Rights Commission has raised in relation to the 48-hour rule, where people are sometimes getting arrested on a Friday and they kept all weekend and kept till Monday afternoon. Rights of arrested persons, police bail, caution interview, right to remain silent, fingerprinting and photographs. If you can elaborate on those issues.
Certainly. Starting with the 48-hour rule, the police are entitled to keep any person arrested for 48 hours. My point is... Without charge. Without charge at this stage. My point, we've issued a statement to say, why can't the police take people in on Monday morning to Friday morning? And the reason being, if you as the police have completed your investigations, all you need to do is interview people. That can finish in most instances in a few hours, charge them, take them to court, and the court can deal with them on that particular day. Why do you take them on a Friday and keep them all weekend and then produce them in court on a Monday afternoon, right? So that is something of concern to us, because these people accused persons are charged. They haven't been convicted yet. And yet their liberty is taken away from them in the weekend and they are kept overnight. And there's always been allegations that it's a softening process, that the people kept in after staying in the holding cells for one night, they are ready to be, they would just want to cooperate with the police to say, look, just deal with us and let us release us. So we've had instances where the police have taken people in to say, we'll start the interview at 6 p.m. on a Friday night. They start and then immediately defer it until the next day. Then they'll announce that we'll have to keep them overnight. And we as lawyers are saying, but why? As Human Rights Commission are saying, why? Why can't these people go home and come back tomorrow? So it is a highly unfair situation, but it's happening and we keep calling on the police, please try to avoid this.
Have you had meetings with the police in relation to this?
Not as yet, but we do intend to meet the acting commissioner to stress this point and see what is their logic in trying to continue with this. Okay. Because Vijay, what you must realize is people can complain on a Monday, but the accused person is taken on a Friday. Why can't they be taken on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday? Why wait until Friday evening? Right. So then moving on to the caution interview, our point is that you should ideally set the caution interview a time suitable to the police, the accused person and their lawyer. The police cannot dictate to say, we've set the time, you turn up. If your lawyer is busy, find a legal aid lawyer or another lawyer or turn up without. That's not acceptable practice. Okay. At the caution interview, a lot of people wish to exercise their right to silence. They'll give their name, their address, their date of birth, and they'll say, we don't wish to say anything else. You've put the allegation to us, we deny it, you can charge us, and we'll say what we have to in court if there is a case to answer. So after the prosecution present their case and the accused is then called on, do you want to say anything, or shall we just see whether this case has been proven against you beyond a reasonable doubt? That's when most people want to say anything. What the police need to understand is they've been arrested and hauled in the police cells, right? These people feel intimidated, stressed out. They don't trust the police. They don't feel that they are going to be given a fair chance in the interview. So most people choose not to say anything. But our practice is, from what we understand, what we've observed is, as lawyers and human rights institutions, the police will continue to ask you questions.
Despite the fact right to remain
you've said,
silent.
I don't want to say anything. They'll continue with 300 questions. So that's a waste of time. The person continues to say, I don't want to answer that. I don't want to answer that. Because what you must realize is that sometimes the police interview can turn into a cross-examination. Basically putting allegation to the person and saying, I put it to you, this is what you did. And that's unfair, because people should not be allowed to incriminate themselves. They shouldn't. And that's a danger if you don't have a lawyer. And having a lawyer doesn't mean the lawyer should be available by phone. The lawyer should be sitting next to the accused person and making sure that the person doesn't incriminate themselves, and the lawyer should be able to object, to say, my client should not answer that. So those are issues which happen at the caution interview. And can I also mention, the caution interview, it has two purposes. One, the police bringing people for caution interview to put the allegation to them, but also to strengthen the case. Imagine if an accused person admits, yes, I did that crime. So that is a caution, in the caution interview, if that's an admission, that is a document which is admissible in court. On the other hand, the caution interview, the police should also consider, and they do say at the end, do you wish to say anything else? The accused person should be able to give the alibi or reasons why they say they haven't done it. Most instances, the police will say, you can say that in court. And we as lawyers insist, no, you must record it. You've asked this person whether they have anything further to say, and they are providing the alibi. Now, in an ideal world, straight after the caution interview, the person who's provided an alibi should not be charged. But that's a practice. Most people are charged within the next 8 to 10 minutes, then kept in the cell and produced in court. But if a person has provided an alibi, shouldn't the police investigate the alibi? And shouldn't the police also consider sufficiency of evidence of this particular prosecution? Is there enough evidence? Just because you've conducted a quotient interview does not mean you just proceed to charge, but that happens a lot. Now, moving on to bail, the Bail Act 2022 allows the police to provide police bail in many instances. Once you're charged, you must be produced in court within 24 hours. Okay. Most instances, when lawyers say to the police, can you release our client on police bail? The police will say no. And we'll say why? They'll say instructions from the top. That is not good enough. If you are going to deny someone bail, the police have to provide it in writing. That's not happening as well. So lawyers need to insist under the Bail Act, if you're going to deny them police bail, provide it in writing, because that can be challenged in court later.
Have you been given examples of these cases from complainants in relation to these issues?
The bail issues is more. I also run a law firm. I'm a lawyer by in my other life, and I run my own law firm, Victoria Chambers. So some of what I'm saying is actually from my experiences of a criminal barrister. So that's what happens. Most instances, rarely would you see the police bailing, exercising their discretion in bailing people.
Do you think it's a lack of knowledge issue? You said like the training, maybe more training is required in these areas, more understanding?
It could be that, or the police need to be aware of the Bail Act. Perhaps the people running the workshops, conducting workshops, needs to look at this area to say. And if you think about it, if someone is released on police bail, that's one person less in the police station, one person less to be provided meals. These are expenses which the police incur by keeping people overnight.
Fingerprinting and photographing?
Okay, that's a statement we issued recently, and a lot of people did not know about it. So we've had a lot of feedback from people to say, only people who are being charged for offences which carry prison terms can be fingerprinted, photographed straight after charging. Okay, that in itself is an issue, but it is the Act. Police Act, Section 18 of the Police Act 1965, also Section 10D of FICAC Act 2007 allows these powers. But in an ideal world, a person should be fingerprinted and photographed upon being convicted and all the appeals exhausted. Because if a person later who's been fingerprinted and photographed after charge is acquitted, then that material should be destroyed. But rarely do people follow up. Most people are so happy to be acquitted, they just think that's it, all over. But what they might not realize is that information remains with the police. Okay? Section 25 of the Constitution allows you the right to information. People can write to the police and other public institutions to say, what information are you holding about us? And is it correct information? And ask them to rectify any information which is incorrect. We have recently received a complaint where a person turned up to a police station to say, I have heard that some chap who had a police incident 30 years ago and it got reconciled, perhaps it was an assault case, and he then got a green card application to go to America, and he did not reveal in his application that he had a police conviction because he forgot about it, because he was not actually convicted. But it was actually still on record that there was an incident where he was charged, but he wasn't actually convicted. That somehow or the other remained on his record. So this other chap our complainant also went to check, and he also has found out that he had a complaint which was reconciled, but the police still have that material. So they've asked us to write to the police, and we're in the process of doing that, to say on what basis are you maintaining that information if the person was not convicted. So that goes straight back to Section 18, because Section 18 not only talks about fingerprinting and photographing, they even can take your footprints and other sort of biodata.
You're watching Fiji Village Street Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. We'll be back after this break.
Cause I'm rolling in no light. And she told me you'll be right. I might call her for the night. Oh no, no Chris, BVS, oh yes. Let's taste, sing song.
Wait, where am I?
Oh, you died, bro.
I'm dead? But why?
Gorry, that's what happens when you change your playlist when you're driving?
Crashed.
What? No, this can't be happening. I had so much left to do in life. All I do is stare at my phone because you know I'm Gen Z and we're all antisocial.
Oh.
And I wish I did so
Poor guy.
much. But by the way, do you guys have Wi-Fi up here?
This is why you should have listened to F96 Drive. Shouldn't let them play no music.
And you just drive.
No! I can't believe this is happening. It was
When you're done, yeah?
car and I didn't have
Hell
a
is
car.
that way, eh? Yeah?
Wait, what?
Again, are you looking for some extra pocket money? Do you have a knack for getting things done? Are you good with your hands? Then the Toll Event Company wants you. As a member of the event crew, you'll be an integral part of making our events a success. Whether you're setting up equipment, managing crowds, or handing out flyers, you'll be at the heart of the action. So why wait? Send your CV to recruitment@cfl.com.fj and join the Toll Event Company event crew support staff today.
Welcome back. You're watching Fiji Village Straight Talk. I'm Vijay Narayan. Our guest tonight is the chair of the Human Rights and Anti-Discrimination Commission, Mr. Pravesh Sharma. And we're talking about all human rights issues. How does it affect you? Your questions are also being asked on the show. Thank you very much for sending questions to Fiji Village Straight Talk. There's been a number of questions sent, advice being sought, and what can be done, Mr. Sharma, in relation to these are civil servants who have messaged in from last week into this week after they found out that you'll be coming on the show. Issues about alleged racism when appointments are made to civil service positions, and this is specifically some Indo-Fijian civil servants are claiming that they believe that they were the best people for the job in terms of the appointment or the promotion, but they understand or they even heard that a preference was made to appoint an Itoke person. Now the issue is race-based appointments which breach their human rights. What's your message to them and what can be done in relation to these allegations?
There is, under the Constitution, the right to employment. That is a human right. And everyone, as I mentioned, Section 26 does allow equal treatment for every person. We haven't received any complaints per se about this issue as yet, but I have seen a media report where the Honourable Prime Minister has said that aggrieved employees can complain to him because he's the Minister for Civil Service. The dilemma there is, really, would you have a situation where an employee who's in his position would complain because they would fear reprisals and that there might be further discriminations if that's what they think is going to happen. So, you know, really would you see a situation until the person actually leaves employment, then they might challenge raise such an issue in the employment court. So I guess, you know, it is a dilemma they face, but if they do wish to raise it with us or the Ministry of Employment, we would certainly look into it. But there are internal procedures. I mean, that's what the Honourable Prime Minister is referring to. If you are not happy with the appointment, you'll have to actually go through that internal procedure first. Then you can go to the employment tribunal or the employment high court.
And do you think there's time now to maybe, just like with the police, you will try to engage to ensure that some training provided, that the civil service also goes through this type of training to avoid any discrimination?
We do actually, our education teams does reach out to such organizations. Can I just mention that we want to work with, we have good working relations with the police, correctional facilities, and all these organizations, because we actually want to help them as well, to ensure if they are compliant, there'll be less complaints as far as we see. But yeah, I do take your point, and then we'll reach out to them to see that if we can provide training, we'd be happy to do that.
So what is your message to people who may fear victimization? This was one of the questions sent in, who may fear victimization for filing complaints with the Commission. What is your message to them?
I would say that you shouldn't have that fear. If you have a genuine complaint, you feel that your human rights is been breached, do come and complain to us. We will assist you as best as we can, or refer you to other agencies which can do that. If you do not complain, then it's basically your human right being breached. You are the one losing out. You may not be the only person in this category. There may be other people. The more people complain, the better for better chances of actually the matter being resolved, as opposed to one person complaining. If 10 people complain, obviously it's a bigger issue. So my message to people is, know about your human rights, and if there is a breach, complain to us. Do not hold back.
There's another issue which is quite concerning, is arbitrary evictions. We know there's protections in the Constitution as far as landlords and tenants are concerned, but I understand that this has increased now, and you have received complaints as well.
This is an area we receive regular complaints. So if I can explain, arbitrary eviction means, so you have a situation where a landlord has rented out their premises to a tenant, and the tenant has financial difficulties, not able to pay rent. In that situation, what the landlord needs to do is go through a legal process, perhaps eviction proceedings in the High Court. They cannot arbitrarily evict a tenant, which means literally overnight, without giving notice, lock them out of the premises, throw their personal belongings onto the road. And Section 39 of the Constitution is the one which says no person should be arbitrarily evicted or their homes demolished. We've had situations, like I said, we've had complaints. In one instance, we took a constitutional redress where a landlord had locked out a tenant. We took it to the High Court through our commission. The High Court agreed that the landlord had arbitrarily evicted the tenant, awarded damages of $25,000. The landlord appealed to the Court of Appeal. Court of Appeal again confirmed that there was arbitrary eviction, but reduced the damages to $7,500. The matter went to Supreme Court, the highest court in our country. Again, the Supreme Court confirmed that there was arbitrary eviction, and the $7,500 had to be paid. We have another situation. In the case I mentioned, one child was locked out of the house because when this happened, his parents were away. So one child, about a 10-year-old, was actually left outside the premises, locked up. We have another case where 3 children and 1 adult were locked out. So we need landlords get frustrated because they have another potential tenant who can pay rent, whereas the existing tenant might not be able to pay rent. But you cannot, landlords, you cannot arbitrarily evict tenants. There is a process to go through, and it's I guess what landlords need to understand is that if you lock someone out overnight, they'll have no place to stay that night. So they have to resort to social welfare agencies or come to our office, and we have to try and assist them to find accommodation. So this is why if a landlord wants to evict a tenant, they'll have to give a month's notice. When the matter goes to court, maybe if the tenant says, yes, I can't pay, I will move out, the court will give them perhaps a bit more time, maybe another 2 weeks before eviction proceedings can be enforced. So this is why landlords need to understand you can't arbitrarily evict your tenant. If you do so, you are breaching Section 39 of the Constitution, and there will be consequences. You could end up paying damages, monetary damages.
What about the issues that a lot of tenants who go into, maybe they're desperately looking for homes and they get a house on rent without having any agreement? I get a lot of calls in relation to that, and then the landlord acts on arbitrary eviction. And when I've tried to get some help for people who are calling, and they're told they can only assist if there's an agreement in place. What's your message to those people?
No, that's not. That's perhaps not necessarily correct, because you can, ideally you should have a written agreement, but if you don't have one, then it's an oral tenancy, and if you pay rental on a monthly basis, then it's an oral monthly tenancy. To evict them, you have to still give a month's notice.
There you go, that's clarified as well in relation to people asking that question. The question was in relation to cyberbullying. A lot of concerns coming up in relation to people's right to privacy being breached, a lot of young people getting affected, and even resulting in mental health issues, depression. What is your message to people? We know there's an online safety commission in place, but you definitely are also receiving such complaints now.
We do receive complaints, and in situations where the complainant can actually identify the person who's actually harassing or bullying them, we are able to contact that person to try and say you'll have to stop or else you'll be prosecuted, or try and mediate, conciliate. So we've had many success stories where the material has been taken off social media. But there are some instances where the person who's actually doing the bullying is doing through an anonymous account, and in those instances we refer them to the online safety commissioner or the police.
There's also issues in relation to bullying in schools. Earlier, the Commission a few years ago had really denounced the bullying or the culture of bullying in boarding schools. A lot of boys, young boys, through an initiation process at the time, were getting assaulted and did not even want to return to school. At that time, it was suggested that proper training needs to be provided. There needs to be more done in relation to campaigns against bullying in school. Do you still get reports and complaints of bullying in school? Is it concerning?
We still get situations where children are bullied. Recently, I think in the western side, one boy was actually assaulted by a group of other boys. So it's still happening, whether in the school premises or outside the school premises. And it is something, yes, I think perhaps the Ministry of Education or the schools themselves need to ensure it doesn't happen, training perhaps, but when it does happen, it does end up in assaults, they've been charged with assault and taken to task. And you'd think that would be a general deterrent, because the last thing you want, any high school student who goes through the court process and gets a conviction, literally their chances of actually getting a job in the future or entering perhaps another higher educational institution would be very limited, because if you have a conviction. So that's the message which needs to go out to children, to say, do not engage in bullying, and if you do, you will ruin your own future, and it's just not worth it. And again, children's rights are protected under the Constitution as well.
About teachers bullying, there's allegations of, in one case where a type of bullying where a student clearly stated the student cannot take part in a physical education activity, and it was clearly stated that this is compulsory, which resulted in the student getting badly affected. Are you getting cases of that sort too, the rigid, maybe compulsory terms that have been set by some schools or teachers?
We have such a case. We have that. We have situations where there's, at least in one situation, where there's an allegation that one of the teachers physically assaulted a child. So that's still happening. Or firstly, I have to mention that corporal punishment is not allowed. Teachers, parents, no one can hit a child. So that's totally that might have been done perhaps when we were young, Vijay, but that is not condoned anymore. And if people do that, they are going to be punished, in court. There are other ways of disciplining children if it comes down to it. Parents and teachers can do that if they want to. But certainly physical assault is not allowed. And yes, I mean, if children or their parents have provided that a certain child cannot take part in physical activity, teachers need to respect that. And if they don't, then that is yet another cause for complaint.
What is your message to parents or teachers who say, very hard to deal with children, they need a smack?
No, my message to them is do not engage in smacking. There must be other ways. I mean, I'm not an expert in this. Perhaps you should talk to Selina Kuruleda, the Permanent Secretary for Education. She's also qualified as a psychologist, child psychologist, so she would have very good information on this. But perhaps, you could say to a child that you're not going to be able to watch television for your favorite program for 1 hour tonight because you've been naughty or something. Those sort of discipline measures can be taken into account. But smacking is out. Smacking is, children can get physically hurt there and then, but there may be also long-term emotional trauma and things like that. So this is the sort of research which has led to corporal punishment being banned.
And it is illegal and unconstitutional in Fiji as well.
It is, yes.
We know that this was a bit of a part of a campaign during the last elections as well. Some of the candidates were saying that whether there should be consideration to bring back corporal punishment. That's why I asked the question on what is your message to the people. Now,
Vijay, perhaps I can answer. If adults cannot be assaulted, why should children be assaulted? And smacking is an assault.
What type of cases is the Human Rights Commission involved in when it comes to court cases? You highlighted a few. You definitely are getting a number of issues coming through from the police, corrections, where you need to be involved in. What are some of the major cases that you are involved in?
So we have the power to actually institute cases on our own as Proceedings Commissioner, or we can be joined as amicus curiae. So constitutional redresses, arbitrary evictions, if we think that any form of discrimination which we think has happened, not prosecution. We leave the prosecution to the prosecuting agencies. If it comes down to that, we can say to the police, we've reached this stage, we need you to take over and prosecute people. We actually do more what is called constitutional redress cases, which are in the Bill of Rights chapter. We haven't done anything on environment or climate change yet, but that is something we could do. And we also are called upon to assist people with domestic violence restraining orders. A lot of women or children would come up to say that they've been assaulted, and the options there is they can go to a police station, the police can issue a DVRO, or they can go to the family court and get that. And so what we do is when they approach us, we actually assist them, help them fill out what is called Form 1 of the DVRO application and take it to court or to the police station to get that interim restraining order.
My question in relation to rising cases of human trafficking, you touched a bit on migrant workers coming in, but human trafficking, sex trafficking and drugs. People are concerned about even some parents using their children as drug traffickers, transporting drugs in school bags, etc. What are some of the issues the Commission is involved in to ensure we address this issue effectively and efficiently?
Like I said, migrant workers is one, but we've had a situation where a mother approached us to say that her ex-husband had exploited his biological daughter by actually abusing her, sexually abusing her, as well as actually exploitation in selling her to a foreign adult male. So that we took to the police, and that person was successfully prosecuted and is now actually been sentenced to jail. So that's happening. I mean, people might think it's not happening, but it is real. And there's specific legislation to deal with trafficking of human beings.
Mr. Sharma, as we finish off the program for tonight, what is your message to the people when it comes to the Fiji Human Rights Commission? Mainly, if some people are looking at you as trouble causers, as you said, you're here to protect the rights of all in the country and also to work with the institutions of this country.
We are not troublemakers. We are an independent institution. We want to work with other human rights defenders who are protecting people's rights, including human rights defenders. Say you as a journalist, if you get into trouble because of the nature of work you do, you can come to us. We'll try and assist you as well. We want to work with the government agencies, with other organizations, civil society organizations, non-governmental organizations, all these organizations, all collectively to protect human rights, right? We want people to be aware of their rights and not tolerate breaches. If your right has been breached, please contact us or any other agencies which can help you. We have good laws, as I mentioned, in the Bill of Rights chapter of our 2013 Constitution Act. It's about respecting that, and if it's not respected, then it will lead to enforcement.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma, and that's our show for tonight. Until next week, have a great evening.